Thank you everyone for joining us again this week. This lecture was recorded with a live audience.
Dear friends, welcome everyone. This lecture is titled Listening to the Voice of the Innermost. Thank you for joining us once again this week. Let's go ahead and get started. Samael tells us, only in a state of alert novelty, with a spontaneous mind, free from the burdens of the past and full receptivity, we can listen. Those are a lot of requirements. Spontaneous mind, free from the burdens of the past. What? He even says, our minds must always be alert, attentive, and free of prejudices and preconceptions to be truly receptive. What? No wonder we cannot listen. And this is not just listening to the voice of the innermost, because listening to the voice of the innermost can be challenging. There are many times that the innermost will say this in whatever way it communicates. You will perceive it. But we have already learned about the three atoms of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit that we have within us. We already know the impact of how the ego has taken over those 300,000 receptors of the mind. And the ego, being a bad secretary, the energy goes and is wasted sexually, or is wasted in doubts and thoughts or insecurities, or is wasted in emotions or distractions. And then where did the message go? It went nowhere. So what happens? For us to be alert and attentive, that means that we must be here, present at this moment. And we are bombarded with so many impressions. Right now we are bombarded with so many of them, and it has become so normal that we don't even consider them. But if you feel for a second the sensation of the floor on your feet, the sensation of the chair, the effect of your posture, your breathing, the temperature in the room, the light, the sound of my voice, anything else that is happening around, that is all being registered simultaneously. Every one of those entries into the body is helping build up a mental image frame that is loaded with information. At the end of the day, petabytes of information. So for us to be alert and attentive, we need to be able to perceive that. We must perceive that without preconceptions or prejudices, without thinking this is good, this is bad, and much less identifying with it, and in the fascination of the impression, just going and drifting into other thoughts of previous experiences, comparisons of many kinds, because by the time we do that, we're no longer here. Samael says, we are wherever our consciousness is. So we could be here. And by the time that we're here, 2 minutes into this, we may no longer be here. The thing is that people look at them, and we have gotten so good at this. It's like we have multiple aspects of our personality just handling the challenges, that people look at you and they look attentive and they give you acknowledgement of receipt. They shake their head. They say, yeah. And then you say, what was I saying? They don't know. It is like we completely drift off and we leave back the physical body well-trained just to manage the environment and not get in trouble. That is dangerous. That is dangerous. So this is where we should be. So let me share with you in terms of priming the listening engine. And we're going to start with a Zen story. On his first year of life, Han Shan came to be the son of a lady of name Han. Han was a very profound devotee of Kuan Yin. Kuan Yin is the Divine Mother. And one night, Han, in her sleep, she has a dream where she sees Kuan Yin dressed in white. And as she contemplates Kuan Yin kneels and hugs a child. The next morning, Han found out that she was pregnant. So by the second year, that child became very, very ill. The mother was suffering tremendously. Many things were tried to heal that creature. And in a profound act of devotion, Han invoked Guanyin, and she said, if he recovers, I will offer him to become a monk. And suddenly the child started getting better. And not only the child healed, the mother, true to her promise, she listed her child at the Long Life Temple, or the Temple of Long Life. And when she inscribed them with a new name, Heshang. And Heshang means monk. In this case, Buddhist monk. So with the child better, by the time the child is 3 years old, this was a child that was different from all the other children. And this child was not playing much. And his grandfather looked at him one day and said, this kid is like a wooden stake. By the time that Heshang was 7 years old, and to help him navigate the situation, his mother, Han, told him, you can wake him up. And so Heshang stepped out of his shock, and he started going to his uncle and even shouted his name. But as he's shouting the name of the uncle, his aunt was feeling really hurt. And so Han, the mother of Heshang, said, dear son, your uncle is dead. His body is here, but his spirit is gone. And this brought profound distraught into the heart of Heshang. What do you mean that his body is here, but his spirit is gone? And as he remains confused, his mother said, you came from my belly. And at that moment, he became very intrigued by the mysteries of life and death. Let's go ahead and start expanding on what this means as we open ourselves to listen. By the time that he was 3 years old, his grandfather stated, this kid is like a wooden stake. Lives of the masters are always lived in symbols. In this number 3, we see that is a manifestation of those 3 primary principles of creation. And here we are seeing that this kid is like a fragment of something greater, a fragment of the tree of life. Every time that we see wood in a dream, it must immediately invite us to think about the tree of life. And at 7 years of age, the 7 always invites the exercise of willpower. It is the number 7, the one that shows us the inner being as a warrior with either a sword or a staff or a whip. Force, creative power, wisdom, or willpower in a chariot of battle, facing adversities, dealing with confusions and learning from the mysteries of life. By the time that he was 8, at a time in which number 8 brings ordeals, tests, difficult moments that require serenity and patience, he started living the most painful time of his life. He was going to be sent to a school at the other side of the river. There is a mantra of the Prajna Paramitas, the greatest masters of wisdom. It says, Gate, 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 paragate, parasamgate, bodhi swaha. Wow. That means liberation, liberation, liberation. To the other side of the river, all of humanity. Liberation. Hallelujah. Wow. He knew that he was going to be sent to a school at the other side of the river, and that made it homesick. And in his attachments, he decided that he did not want to go. And what his mother did was that she beat him with a stick. And not only she beat him, she took him to the pier where the boat was waiting, and she grabbed him and she tossed him into the waters. That is so profound. because the waters always awaken us. His grandmother jumped in and saved him. And then, because his grandmother grabbed him and brought him home, the mom grabbed him again and brought him once again to the dock. And then at that moment, Heshang's heart changed and he left to school. And while he was at school, he learned that his mother will come to the pier and sit and cry every day because he was not with her. By the time that he was 9, the number 9 that brings us into a period of solitude, where we must guide ourselves with our inner light, he came across the Sutra of Kuan-Yin Avalokiteshvara. This is the Bodhisattva who delivers the world from suffering. And Heshang took the Sutra of Kuan-Yin and he learned it by heart. And not only he learned it by heart, he offered it in chantings to his mother. And when his mother found out that he was doing that, she was so happy. But that mother, we know what that is. It is not only his physical mother, it is his devotion to his Divine Mother. By the time he became 10, his mother then was motivating him to study. The number 10 always speaks about recurrence. It always speaks about things that return and that repeat themselves. And she told him, you can become a government official of any rank. And as he is studying, he says, and if I become prime minister, then what? If I get to the top, then what do I do? And his mother said, then you retire. And then he said, why should I work so hard to reach a goal and then retire? And his mother looked at him with infinite compassion and kindness. And she said, I would not worry about that if I were you, because you really don't have that much talent. This is how our Divine Mother brings in repeat events so many opportunities so that we can see that our ego does not really take us too far away. And so she said, if you become holy, I will let you become a monk. And so by the time that Heshang was 12 years old, he decided that he did not want to get married. And then, well, his mother convinced his father to just let him go and become a monk. So they bring him together to that temple of long life, because that's what they promised. And they receive him, and the abbot says, this kid is different. And then one of the scholars sees him and says, wow, this boy is going to be the teacher of men. He's going to be a teacher in the heavens. And to that, Heshang only said, instead of all that, I would rather become a Buddha. By the time that he turns 19, 12 is the time of the apostolate. It is the time where the sincere practitioner sees himself bound by his left foot. That is the sinister side. And with his right foot, he is able then to articulate and create a cross, allowing him to let go of all of the mundane things of the world. And the period of 19 is always a period of inspiration. It is a force that moves you, where the solar force brings you success. So by the time that he was 19, Master Jungu taught him about following the path of Chan Buddhism. And this is a path that invited him to study deep the formation, the concepts, the things of the mind, the wonders of the mind, and abandon all of his worldly desires. And what Heshang did is that he studied the sayings of Xiongfeng, and when he found his true path, He then decided to become a monk, and he joined the Sangha. The Sangha is the school, it's the congregation. So once he gets in there, by the time that he is 20 years old, 20, that is the time of resurrection. It's a time of triumph. The abbot dies. But 9 days earlier, before the abbot died, the abbot visited every monk. And knowing that he was going to die, because these great masters, having power over life and death, they can decide when the time is over. The great Hermes Trismegistus even teaches what you must do at the time of death. He even teaches you how is it that we leave our physical body behind. So before Master Shi died, he visited every monk to say his farewells and goodbyes. And because his body was a little ill, some of the monks were encouraging, let's do this, let's do that. And the master said, when it's time to leave, what's the use of taking medicine? So he assembled all his disciples. And all the disciples, as they come together, they start reciting the name of Buddha Amitabha for 5 days and 5 nights. And as they are invoking Amitabha, the innermost of the enlightened one, of Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. After those 5 days, Master Shi, he rests comfortably and he's holding onto his mala. He closes his eyes and exhales his last breath. But 2 years earlier, Master Shi said, I am 83 years old, and soon I will leave this earth. And though I have over 80 disciples, none of them will be able to take my place except Heshang. When it's time to leave, what's the use of taking medicine? That is a good koan. A koan is an enigmatic phrase that when the mind receives it, does not know what to do with it. It is like the koan. What was your first face? It is like the koan. If all things reduce to unity, to what does unity reduce to? Those powerful Zen koans bring the mind to a halt. And when that happens, the consciousness can escape and experience the illuminating void. By the time that Heshang became 30 years of age, seeing once again a new cycle of creation, he was on his way to the 5-peak mountain. And the noise of the roaring wind and the running water used to disturb him a lot, used to distract him in such a way that he could not meditate. And a master told him the disturbance that you feel is created within your own mind because you think of it as noise. Listen without judgment. Concentrate on the act of merely hearing so that no thoughts of any kind can arise in your mind. And if you get this, then you already know everything that we will discuss today in this lecture. The master told them, the ancient said that whenever or whoever can listen to sounds without thinking will soon attain the all-pervading wisdom of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. The moment that the consciousness can escape, the moment that we put aside our interpretations, our judgments, our preconceptions, and we just focus on perceiving, everything becomes clear. By the time Heshang turned 33 years old, just like the same age of the great master, Yeshua Pandira, nothing could disturb him. And he devoted himself to copying in his actions, in his thoughts, in his life, the Sutra of Kuan Yin. His state of mind became oblivious to the surroundings. Some of the old monks They tried to distract him, and they all failed. And they said to one of his friends, Miao Feng, said, "How can he do this?" And Miao Feng said, "My friend, Heshang is so used to being in a state of samadhi." Wow. When we see these old monks trying to distract them at the age of 33, I want you to know that that is identical to what happened to the great Master Jesus with his apostles when he was also 33. This is referred to as the temptation of the masters. In the case of Master Jesus, after he descended from his meditation at the Mount of Olives, where he asked of his Divine Father, if you can take away from me this chalice, I appreciate that. But let it not be my will, but yours. And what did the apostles say? They said, "Dude, let's run away. You don't have to do this." That is the temptation of the masters. And of course, he's used to being in samadhi. And now that we learned about the tattvas, we know what samadhi is. Samadhi being that vibration of the cosmic mind. That means that he was able to lose himself within the greatness of the illuminating void. And so, at that time when he was still 33 years of age, in one dream, the Bodhisattva Manjushri prepared for him a bath in the North Peak. And the Bodhisattva Manjushri led him into the chamber and began to pour water on his head. Wow. As he is doing that, the water is coming through and washing away his insides. And so his internal organs just flow out of his body. And as he is looking at what was inside, he sees that there are dripping brains and there is bone marrow. And the monk picks it up and says, "Is this not clean?" And he puts it in his mouth and he swallows it. And when he tastes it, he sees that his body and his mind were pure like honey. This is the story of Master Heshang. And there is so much to this story that I wish we could dedicate several days just to go over it. But let's go back into learning how to listen. Samael says, to know how to listen, we must be present. And I ask myself and I ask you, are you, because he is addressing a group of second and third chamber students, he is saying, are you sure that right now you're not wandering around your house? Are you sure that you're not in your workshop, that you're out in the field or in some place of your affection? And this is the beauty of those Zen stories. They shock you in such a way that you go out and then you come back and you're here present and you hear something else. You go like, what was that? This is what it does. So for us to be able to know how to listen, we must be present. So let me share with you now a different story. This one may be less mystical, nevertheless very interesting. And this is a story of Master Samael and his friend of name Sucre. You will find this story, for those of you who would like to read it in depth, in the book, The Mystery of the Golden Blossom. This is chapter 20th. Okay? So in this particular story, Samael has his friend called Sucre, and Sucre likes to be an exhibitionist. Now, this is not like a sexual exhibitionist, He likes to show his abilities. He likes to boast about his powers. And he loved to do hypnosis. We want to say, and we make this very clear, that hypnosis is black magic. Because when hypnosis comes into play, there is someone who surrenders their free will, and there is someone who takes it over. And if we, with our many aggregates, make so many mistakes, we must know that the person that is hypnotizing is bringing with them all of their baggage, defects too. And they may be well-intended. And there may be many quote-unquote good defects or positive values in play. But the positive values are still dangerous because they will try to do good when it is not the right time to do it. So what happens? He tries to hypnotize this man in some environment, maybe a bar. He's trying with all his strength to hypnotize. He couldn't. They mocked him. The guy felt hurt, deeply hurt. So in one of the many conversations, Samael is with his friend Sucre, and Samael says, I had a dream. I've been staying at this place, belongs to so-and-so person, and I had a dream. Samael says, I was there sleeping comfortably in my bed, and I woke up, and suddenly the ground opened up, and a woman came out of the ground. She emerged from the hole, and she said something in the likes of, I'm here to let you know that down here there is a treasure that has been buried. That treasure is for you. Sucre heard that. And after the conversation, he reached out to the owner of the place. It happened to be some doctor, whatever. But not only Sucre gets to meet the doctor, Sucre works his way around the doctor in such a way that the doctor makes him a partner. A partner. And Sucre is sharing some stories, and Samael has never seen any of this. So what does Samael do? Samael says, this warrants some investigation. So he submerges himself in a deep state of meditation, and as he's reaching samadhi, he unfolds in his astral body, and he goes visits the place, and he starts seeing the office of the doctor and the things that Sucre was talking about. It's like, this is interesting. So after a few years, Samael just listens to that. The guy becomes partner with the doctor. Samael leaves, and a few years later, he comes back, expecting to be able to stay once again at this place. But when he gets back, the place is obliterated. There are electric power lines, and there are motors running, and pumps, and workers, and excavation, and there's like a hut. What happened? When Samael gets there, his friend Sucre comes out and said, Samael, it's you. Come, let me show you. He brings him into the hut. He closes the door and immediately goes and opens little portholes on the walls where he's looking outside, just looking at the workers to make sure that the workers are working. Every time that there's a noise, the guy will stand up and he will either grab his rifle or his gun and look out the portholes to make sure that everything is okay. It's like, what's happening? Sucre says, he's excavating looking for the treasure. Someone says, what are you doing? He said, looking for the treasure. And around, speaking meters, 12 meters down, what is that, 36, 40 feet? They came across this ceramic calf. Sucre says, we are looking for this treasure. And this treasure is a golden calf. It has been buried here. We're going to find it. And as they're excavating, boom, they come across that ceramic calf. And they pull it out, they break it, and inside the calf there was like a roll of paper. So very delicately, he takes it to his friend, the doctor. The guy had a lab, it's a doctor. And they're being very gentle with it because, it's been buried for so long, and the moisture, the humidity. So they open it and they find that there are inscriptions. There is a map. And the map is showing that there are 4 locations, one to the north, one to the south, one to the east, and one to the west, where things have been buried. And things have been buried exactly at 12 meters. Sucre sees that. He says, that is a lie. The treasure is here. So Samael is looking at all that, wondering like, what's going on? Right? So the guy keeps digging, and he keeps digging. So Samael decides to leave. A few days later, he investigates. He says, I wonder what's happening. He once again gets into his astral body. He goes and he descends into the hole. He says, that was not a hole, it was a precipice. Samael had been telling Sucre, if we could say it in today's language, because Samael would never speak like that, saying, dude, nobody digs that deep. But Sucre was saying, it is that deep. So Samael got into the hole. He says, this is not a hole, this is an abyss. And when he got there, he noticed that there was a horizontal dig. And the guy was digging in some other direction. Samael looks up in his astral body and he sees the treasures buried. Exactly what the map said. He says, this poor fella, he left the treasures behind. So he gets up, he comes back into his body. And after losing so much of his riches, the guy trying to justify the need for all of these treasures because he wanted to help fund the revolution and do many. This is at the time of the Second World War. The guy was he was in the likes of what Hitler was doing. This is Sucre. So the guy did not find the treasure. He wasted his time miserably. Samael continued with his work. We said at the beginning that the lives of the masters are all lived in symbols. And there are many symbols in this one as well. The number 12, the 4 cardinal points, the treasure. I mean, the dream itself, to see a woman that emerges from the earth, from the philosophical earth, in a dream that speaks to you, as a representation of your Divine Mother, indicating that there's a treasure here that you must dig for. Take it, it's yours. It speaks clearly of the internal work. Sucre did not understand that. And even when he came across the opportunity to be able to transform his life, he was so focused in his fixed ways of thinking. He was so distrusting. Is that a real word? Yeah. I'm thinking Spanish. He was so distrusting. He was so greedy. He was so violent that he was not able to perceive. What Sucre comes to show us in this story that Samael shares is something that happens to us. And these things are called sophistries of distraction. If you have never seen this word sophistries, a sophistry of distraction is a false reasoning. It is a lie. It is a lie that is created by ourselves. It's a lie that is, of course, created by the ego, because the consciousness cannot lie. It has no need to. And these false reasonings, they bring us to perpetuating mistakes. They put us in a situation in which not only we are doing wrong, we are oblivious that we are doing wrong, all along thinking that we are in the right. Those are the sophistries of distraction. And if there is something that hinders our ability to listen, not only to the voice of the innermost, to the people around us, to our children, to our spouse, to our friends, are all of those false reasonings. Let me give you some examples so that you see what that is. There are people who will have no hesitation on insulting and publicly humiliating someone and say, I'm just trying to help. Okay? It is not uncommon at all to hear someone say, with all due respect, and then drop a bomb behind that. Those are sophistries of distraction. There is a justification that is invited by a positive value. I care for you. I love you. I'm worried about you. And immediately after that, because this is a competing game of egos controlling the machine, some greed or anger or violence or whatever comes into play. And then insults and humiliation. But this is not it. This happens all the time. There are parents that will get angry at their children, and they will not hesitate to grab a belt and beat the child, to manhandle them, to yell at them, to scream at them, and all along say they need tough love. I give my children tough love. Or they say, I was given tough love and I turned out fine. People who would say, children today need blah, blah, blah. And this is nothing more than hatred. This is hatred veiled with the robes of a saint. No. But this is not just that. How many times have we not seen situations where we think that we are not jealous? And suddenly we're eavesdropping. We want to know what's happening. We ask people to investigate for us. These are all sophistries of distraction. Look at this. There are many religious figures that they will swear with their life that they are humble spiritual leaders. And they use their charm, their positional power to take advantage of others. We're not seeking to criticize. We are highlighting things as they are. There are so many people that say, I don't hate anybody. I am a loving person. And they secretly wish someone will stumble into traffic. I mean, we have even heard people say that they're waiting for the wood chipper incident. In some environments, that may come across as a joke, but the underlying element behind that is a sophistry of distraction. It is a self-imposed lie. It is a false reasoning that perpetuates our mistakes. And as part of our self-discovery, we must find what are these sophistries of distraction. Because all the ones that we have highlighted here, we have them. This is not just somebody else. This is us. And we must find out what those are, so that we can call of our Divine Mother and ask her to help us eliminate that. And to do that, Samael says this. There are two capital things in our Gnostic studies. First, self-remembrance of your being. And second, the relaxation of the body. For us to be able to listen, for us to be able to perceive these things within us, to see these defects of us reflected in others, so that we're not judging them, criticizing them, issuing wrong judgments, telling people about our wrong judgments so that we can create alliances against others. I mean, this is cruel stuff. So what we should do, remembrance of the being, and second, the relaxation of the body. So what does he say? He says, sit down comfortably in an armchair. Just relax. I mean, you remember from our lecture, the science of meditation, when he's speaking about the technique of meditation, he says, get comfortable in whatever posture works for you. You don't have to strain yourself in the lotus posture. Sit down comfortably on a chair. Lay down like a flaming star. I mean, some people refer to the posture of the flaming star, laying down on the floor, like the lazy man's posture for meditation, because most people just fall asleep. Right? But what he says, relax. And then remember your being. This is what we're doing. We must relax the body, and we must maintain that remembrance of self. But what self is that? Because in many places we have heard the higher self. I mean, some people think that the higher self is the being. That is not true. The higher self, the lower self, those are extremes of the same thing. And that same thing, that's all ego. No. The being is beyond the self. The being is the true I am. The real being is the I am that I am. Or, as we say in the invocation of Solomon, Echeye asher echeye. We shouldn't say I am that I am. That which is. That's what it is. So we must keep our body relaxed, and with our body relaxed, maintain that remembrance of self. And here in this alchemical drawing, these alchemical drawings are so beautiful. It is very difficult to translate what this is, so excuse that I cannot offer you what that is saying. But here, what we find is the lion of the law. What we find here is a reflection of our being. And notice that it is consuming the sun. Now that blood is coming from the lion, not from the sun. Okay? That sun right there, that is our real being. We can see in this lion our own consciousness. We can see in this lion our consciousness trapped inside of it. And this blood right here, that blood is nothing more than self-sacrifice. Because we have to let go, not to let go. We have to comprehend and invoke of a superior power to eliminate many things that we really like about ourselves. I mean, nobody likes being angry, but everybody thinks that they thrive in anger, which is illogical, but that's the way that it is. I mean, nobody likes to admit that they are jealous, but inside of us, we know when jealousy is attacking violently. I mean, there are people out there that bringing up the topics of sexuality, they will say, oh, me, oh, I will never touch myself like that. Ugh, whack. But in their own private space, they will do the craziest things. You see? We have to take all of those inferior aspects and we need to eliminate them. But if we continue moving forward with a false identity, thinking that we are this or that, or that we must comply with these social things, then all that suffering. And the great Master Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, he said, we must learn to love without attachments. That is so hard, but it keeps us away from so much unnecessary suffering. Here we see the work of self-realization. Every time that we embrace that solar wisdom, every time that we want to put those solar seeds within us to work, it requires of that self-sacrifice. And that is why we must sacrifice ourselves for others. And there is a practice that comes with this lecture. For us to be able to walk into the space of relaxation, to maintain that internal calmness, Samael says we must learn to be home. That means that we need to be here, present at the current moment. We must be unified, whole before the speaker. Being relaxed means that our instinctive, emotional, and motor, sexual, instinctive brains are in harmony. It means that one of the three is not exhausted. It means that one of the three is not strained. It means that they are not dislocated, because when they are dislocated, we cannot perceive the word. I mean, I don't know about you, but those people who do extreme endurance sports, after they're done with their extreme endurance sport, they go out and they ride their bike for 100 miles, 200 miles. By the time that they come back, the physical body is so strained that it is difficult for them to do simple math. If we have a day in which we have received some kind of emotional shock in the emotional brain, the intellectual and the physical brain will be affected by that. And if you suffer an emotional shock, I mean, we know the case of people who have been preparing themselves for a test, like the SATs. And on their way there, they find themselves delayed in traffic and they are afraid that they're going to get there late, that they're not going to be able to get the text. They get there on a photo finish type of arrival. And by the time that they're there and they receive the papers, they are so emotionally strained that they fail the test. If our centers are out of balance, we cannot perceive the word. But of course, those are extremes. What we're seeing on the screen is not that uncommon. And what we're seeing here on the screen is someone that has dislocated centers and cannot perceive what is happening outside. What we see here is an example of someone who is trapped within their own fantasies. Those are fantasies that are fueled by sophistries of distraction, gossip, sexuality, criticisms, judgments. Other people are bad, we are good. And what happens? The intellect is consumed by the fantasy, distracted by the sophistry of distraction. The emotion is fully invested because there is a strong agreement with what they are seeing there. And of course, the body shuts down and it's only focused here. Even the sense of hearing is dislocated. And then this person is saying, are you even listening to me? What do you say? This is what's happening. So this dislocation of the centers does not even have to be something violent. It's happening to us every moment. This is why we must be relaxed. And for that, we have the practice with the gnomes of the earth. You have already experienced what that practice is. I mean, it brings you into a state where suddenly all you can hear is the anahat sound. In your ears, what you hear is that very gentle singing of the cricket. That singing of the cricket, that is a valuable sound that we use to unfold consciously in our astral body. So what happens here? For those of you who are listening to this lecture, look into our library of videos so that you can see the practice of relaxation with the gnomes of the earth. Look into any video that is titled Practical, because we always start with this type of relaxation. But you have already experienced it, and you have seen what it brings us. By doing this, our personality then becomes more passive. It becomes more receptive. If our centers are balanced, if we are relaxed, the word that comes from high above, that word that comes through the superior centers of the being, they reach the mind. And then we can perceive the voice of the Innermost. John, whether it is today or in any of the upcoming days, if at any moment you feel yourself distraught, if you feel yourself stressed, seek a state where you can sit comfortably, take a deep breath, and invoke of your Divine Father and say, please bring back that previous state of relaxation. And as you exhale, you can immediately feel it. This is how we bring it back. Friends, our personality must become passive and it must become receptive. When the mind is passive, when the mind is receptive, it is fully open to receive. It is no longer making projections. And so, let's not forget the 4 states of consciousness. We have already spoken about these in previous lectures. The state of akasia is that state where the physical body is completely gone. It is just asleep. The body is recovering. The vital body is doing its work. It is regenerating, helping revitalize the body, making it ready for the challenges of the day. While this is happening, our astral body is out of the physicality. If we are making an effort to stay conscious here in the physical body, when we are in that akasia state, in the sleep state, the body is resting, but we can be conscious in the astral plane. Then there is the state of pistis. Pistis is the state of vigil. But this is a very dangerous state, because if the physical body is awake, but we are caught in our dreams, if we are trying to do something, but our mind is somewhere else, again, we are wherever our consciousness is. Then, where are we? And if we're driving and texting at the same time, or if we are trying to be a good friend and somebody's telling us their problem and they need to vent and we are thinking about going grocery shopping, then who's helping who? And then there is the state of the anoia. The anoia is a state of auto-consciousness. This is why we show here this beautiful image of the great Master Yeshua healing the blind. Because Yeshua, being the inner Savior, our innermost, he is bringing back the light into the one who could not see. Opening the eyes is a symbol of reaching that state of auto-consciousness, of becoming aware, of truly perceiving. And then, of course, there is a state of nous. The state of nous is the state of the great masters. Those are fully awakened beings. Those are beings that they don't dream because they don't have to. These are beings that there is no defect within them. We must seek to reach this state of the Anoya. And we're going to share with you today a practice that you can use to start transitioning, to start working your way into a state of auto-consciousness or the Anoya. Because many times we ask for help. Many times we invoke the Innermost and we ask for strength, we ask for guidance, for illumination, we ask for protection. And we can be praying days on end. But if the prayer is not conscious, that means that the prayer is mechanical. A mechanical prayer, it yields back very limited results. Samael says, conscious prayer will have a conscious response. And there's a practice that we can do, appealing to the Lord's Prayer. Because in the Lord's Prayer, there are 7 petitions. For those of you who have never, consider that. Count them quickly in your head as you recite that prayer mechanically really fast to not lose anything that is happening here in the lecture. There are 7 petitions. But for us to appeal to this Lord's Prayer as a practical exercise, okay? As an exercise that we can use to rely on receiving the word of the Innermost to bring us clarity, guidance, so that we can open the path with light through the darkness. We must start by concentrating on our profound inner God. That is our being. How do we do that? We start with the practice of the knowns. Once you dominate that practice, you just invoke that relaxation. That relaxation comes. Actually, when the fire is awakened, when the fire of Kundalini comes into play, and the practitioner receives those 6 faculties, Ananda, Kampan, Gurni, Mush, Anidra, Utang, these 6 powers, one of them is that ability for the physical body to relax instantaneously. Not only that, with that comes an electrical hypersensitivity that allows you to perceive stuff immediately. Something's happening. To not only relax the body immediately, but to allow the body to fall asleep instantaneously. To enfold in your astral body consciously. All of that comes just with the awakening of the fire. So what do? We start by relaxing in our physical body and concentrating on our being, on the superior aspects of our being. Now, we don't have to make of this an intellectual exercise. This is service, this is compassion, this is kindness, this is virtue. This is manifestation of light. And so what do? We make the Lord's Prayer a reflective prayer. And we allow ourselves to meditate on each word and on each petition. It has been said, these great Zen masters, they say the river is never the same. The water that you just saw is no longer there. The same thing happens in our life. And every time that we appeal to the Lord's Prayer, those 7 petitions, they apply slightly different. Give us today our daily bread. Wow. That is the bread of impressions, the nourishment. That is the prana that we receive. Forgive our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. This all has to do with karma. It has to be with kindness, with seeing ourselves reflected in others. If we start looking at each one of these petitions at the current moment on a state of deep relaxation, and as we reflect on that, look what Samael says. After the prayer, relax even more and keep a passive, receptive state. Suddenly your mind is going to be in a quiet and profound silence, and the word is going to show up. How is that word showing up? Because I'm going to tell you, experience shows that it is not somebody whispering in your brain. No. It comes as an image. It comes as something that shocks you in such a way that it takes away your breath. It's like Some people say aha moments. It comes like that. It is not, maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that, blah, blah. No. At least on an experiential level, when we've gone with that, we have been going with something whispering. That's 100% ego it has been. So quiet mound in profound silence and wait for the word of the Father to arrive. And this is how we do it. Samael says a good Lord's Prayer, well prayed, can take you an hour. Relax the body, calm yourself, invoke the innermost. Thy kingdom come. What is that? Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. What earth? A planet, the philosophical earth, this microcosm. There's a lot there. This is how we do it. This is how we can hear the voice of the innermost with a quiet mind and profound silence, with a physical body that is relaxed, remembering these superior attributes, remembering that within us there is a fraction of the human soul of the innermost seeking to manifest, to do some work so that the innermost can continue. Okay. So let's bring this to an end. In the words of Master Samael, he says, the brothers, that's all of us, men and women, okay, must understand this. Learn to receive the word and grasp its deep meaning. This is fundamental because daily we must relax and remember ourselves, our being. This will enable us to advance triumphantly. When we're listening to that word, there are no mistakes. There's only guidance. There's endurance. There is perseverance. There is willpower. If it's not that, it is fear of suffering. It is constant comparisons. It is hiding from the instances where we really need to be courageous. And we must turn that around. Let's identify our sophistries of distraction. Let's invoke of our Divine Mother to see them eliminated. And let's open ourselves to that which is new. Questions?
No. I feel like I've been working on a lot of that, especially the last year or two. One of the things you talked about, especially in the beginning, but also a little bit at the end here, is like the state of being awake and receptive. You know, I was remembering, like, I've heard other meditators mention in the past, like teachers and stuff, like, be like the cat that's staring out the window, you know, like very awake, paying attention to everything, but not necessarily moving, very relaxed.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Wow, I love that. Because that agility of the feline being a symbol of the mind, that is exactly why the Aztec masters dressed themselves at Knights of the Jaguar.
Oh, yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, and we just discovered some new jaguars in Arizona. When you said that, it gave me chills thinking about it.
Nice. Well, friends, if there's nothing else for us, thank you everyone for being here with us. May all beings be happy.